You're superior on camera to me compared to me today, Adam. So that's
I think it's only because I'm sitting a bit closer maybe to the laptop. I haven't even fiddled with anything.
It's actually the small stuff that makes all the difference, like the positioning of the camera and your light and just the audio and stuff like that. It's like basics. It's not about the tech. It's the distance and stuff like that makes all the difference.
Yep.
Anyway, welcome everybody. Welcome to Brainfood Live On Air. It is episode 205. We're bringing it to you every Friday. Thank you so much for supporting this show. I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am. I think people are now kind of, I don't know whether this is true for you, Adam, but people are starting to become more aware of me through the live stream than through the newsletter or anything else. So it's really quite weird that that's the case, and it's really pleasing to know that this is a show that people look forward to and people get into. So fantastic that you're here with us today. Let's do some sound checks just to make sure everything's okay. I've got a new mic, by the way, a clip mic now. So I just want to make sure everyone is can hear me okay audio-wise. So let me know in the chat whether the audio is okay. I know the video is a bit shit as well, but you know what? If you can hear and see me move, that should be all right. And we should be live streaming this on multiple places on LinkedIn. There's me. I believe there should be you as well, Adam. There's Luke Davis live streaming this. Chantelle is live streaming this. Debbie Clement is live streaming this. There's multiple people getting it out everywhere. So we're doing a LinkedIn takeover. So folks, if you want to get involved in that, there is a link on the Crowdcast, which allows you to also live stream the show from your own LinkedIn. How cool is that, hey? Still haven't seen anybody else do it. So I think Brainfood is still plowing a lonely furrow in this revolutionary technique on spreading live streams.
Stop telling people.
I'm going to have to write a blog about it because I'm amazed that no one's used this for talent acquisition yet or for any kind of marketing. It's crazy that that's not occurring. So anyway, this is how you do it, folks. If you want to know, drop me a comment and I'll let you know. It's something that I think is going to be a good thing for everybody. All right, let's get on with the show. We need to thank our sponsors, as we always do, folks. Without our sponsors, we cannot roll this thing forward. Every week, somebody comes up and says, yes, we want to support Brainfood Live On Air. This week, sponsors are Symphony Talent. SymphonyTalent.com, folks. People need to know more about this company than they do. They are an all-everything recruitment, marketing, CRM, talent attraction type of service and product. If you are in the business of trying to improve your pipeline, getting better quality, better quantity at the top of funnel, Symphony Talent are a business that you need to be checking out. I will be sharing a link to their their homepage. Go ahead and check it out there. And yeah, if you're just like stumbling around there with some really poor online assets and what have you, you're not getting the best out of your brand, not communicating to your audience, then check out SymphonyTalent.com. They're a business that can help you. Okay, we have Adam Gordon on as our co-pilot as usual. I was just complimenting Adam on how well he looks, and we agreed it was because he's closer to the camera. So there we go. Anyway, Adam, how was your week?
My week's been really great. I've been chatting to people and going to the gym.
Indeed. And by the way, I don't know whether you're ready to talk about it, but I did see you release something like a beta webpage for your next thing. Is that something you want to talk about? Is that open or not?
Yeah, it's nothing to do with my next thing.
Is it not your next thing?
Oh no. It's just I'll put the link in the chat here. If you go to recruiterenablement.org, it's got a homepage which just outlines what I think recruiter enablement is. Mm-hmm. I think it's a subject that we should all learn more about. If you can't find anything about recruiter enablement, just go to sales enablement and take a look at that and contextualize it in your mind and go and work out what it is. I've seen it firsthand in the sales context, and it's a methodology for furnishing salespeople with every piece of content, tool, prop, app, calculator, whatever it is they need to take a buyer through a journey from first stage outreach through to like the contract negotiation stage, contextualize this for recruitment, and we do not do a good job of furnishing our recruiters with all the things that they need. And honestly, I heard last week one talent acquisition leader told me that they found 3 recruiters in their team in different countries, all writing the same job advert in different ways on the same day. Why don't we have systems in place so that we can all share from each other's, work, and not just about content, but also like intelligence? If I'm about to go and try and hire people out of Barclays, and over the last 3 years, my 50 global colleagues have all been generating intelligence about what it's like to work at Barclays. Why can't I get access to that? We can't get access to that because we don't give our recruiters battle cards so that they can just share all that information and easily convert that into crib sheets for what to say to the person who's working at Barclays. Sorry, I picked you, Barclays. I'm not suggesting people want to leave or you're a good picking ground for hiring from. But anyway, I just want to raise awareness of this subject, and I'm going to be doing lots of videos and putting them on. There's a video page that's currently completely empty, and I am going to be doing lots of videos over the next few months with TA people about this subject, because some people have been doing great things, or they want to do great things because they've acknowledged that there is an opportunity here.
Yeah, fantastic. And go ahead and make use of this resource, folks. I'm sure you'll get something from it. So recruiterenablement.org. Good stuff, Adam. In the midst of doing all of that, have you had any time to actually read the newsletter from last week?
Always. I always read the newsletter. And so I've got some feedback first before I go into some of the topics.
Go on then.
The Hall of Fame.
Yep.
You're going to think that I'm going to complain that I'm not at the top.
Yep.
That's not what I'm going to complain about. I'm going to complain that I can't see the top. So I can just work out what my score is, and I think I'm maybe in 5th place. But for some reason, I can't see who's at the top and what their scores are and things like that. So how do I benchmark myself against these, leaders in this Hall of Fame if I don't know their scores?
We're going to replace the bubble chart with just a table. We're going to go back to just standard table and just expose everyone for their level of effort and lack thereof as to where you're at. But
the
yeah,
bubble chart's very cool. But I can't see the top of it. Maybe there's too many people on it. I don't know.
There may be, yeah. We haven't actually looked at it for a long while. So for folks who don't know, the Brainfood Hall of Fame is there to basically give a little bit of thanks to the people who support the channel and the newsletter and all the rest of it. I'll make a note of everyone who basically gives a shout out or a retweet or something like that. And you accumulate points. And we had some vague idea that those points mean prizes at some point, but we never translated that into anything. And maybe it's time to revive it in some way, or basically find a way to more substantively reward the community members who've been supporting everything we're doing. So anyway, that is still on record whilst I figure out exactly how to translate that into goodies for everybody. Anyway, okay, there's a complaint. Thank you.
Actual brain food. I mean, I found it interesting that you asked people what they would want the focus to be for a midweek brain food, a midweek newsletter. And overwhelmingly, they said a summary of Brainfood Live. So can we use Otter to just transcribe the text and then add it into ChatGPT and say, turn this into talking points or bullet points? There you go. Newsletter done. Newsletter.gpt.
Yep. I think that's what I'm going to do, folks. I don't have time to hand type another newsletter, and I definitely don't have time to transcribe it. So I'm going to pipe it into some transcriber, pull out the top points, and then see whether I can condense that into a useful thing. And it might actually discipline our chat a little bit as well to make sure that actually we're getting something, we're covering the points so that people can walk away with something that they can learn. Because there is learning in there, but sometimes we kind of, I wouldn't say we mess around with it, but we don't pull all of the points out as clearly as we could. So yeah, I think we'll try and do that. I think it's useful. And of course, we'll link it back to the show so that you can go and watch that as well if, the copy stimulates your mind. But yeah, it seems to be that's what the audience wants. Okay,
on ChatGPT, prompt influencers. What a wonderful topic. It's people who are writing blogs and newsletters and tips and like playbooks and things for how to do prompt engineering on ChatGPT. Shout out to Martin Redstone, whose book I just bought a few days ago on this subject. Probably written by ChatGPT. Yes, it was. There was 2 or 3 things that are very valuable to me in there, and he probably wrote it with ChatGPT. I don't know, but anyway, there's an essay, or in fact, a blog from Ethan Mollick about prompt engineering, and he's given some tips around it. But he said basically, you just practice and see what happens. Couple of problems with that. The first is, if you're a bad writer, I really believe that if you're a bad writer, you're not going to be a great writer with ChatGPT unless you have a formula for how to do it. Because if you can't articulate a piece of content in your own words, you're going to struggle to articulate what to say to ChatGPT to give it a great piece of work. So you need to know something about the subject in order to get it to give you the subject, to give you the give you the content. So that's one aspect of it. And then the second aspect of it is, I do think practice is a good thing to do, absolutely. But at the same time, I think follow people like Martin Redstone, whose book was like $6, and it literally has, here's all of the best prompts to put in here in order to achieve the best outcome. Now, times will change. This will develop. I don't know whether there's going to be an algorithm emerge whereby, different types of prompts start to become more effective and others become less effective, in the same way that, posting things on LinkedIn, you don't do it the same way as you used to. And it changes, how you get the best results. I don't know. I'm not sure whether there's any benefit to OpenAI in doing that. But I thought that it was an interesting article nonetheless, with some useful things to go and take a look at.
What I'm getting from you here is, and I've got sympathy with the writer, but also with you, in the sense that Ethan is obviously a very smart bloke, and he's writing and he's a professional writer. He's a lecturer and he's a newsletter writer and all that. So he, of course, for him, practice makes sense because he's already got a baseline level of very high skill in articulating his thoughts using text. But what you're saying, I think, might be very, very correct and very correct. There you go, Hung Lee, failing to do articulation. But if your English level or whatever the language level you use for ChatGPT isn't particularly sufficient, then you're not going to be able to really make use of it. Think of this from a literacy point of view as well. There's many societies that haven't achieved 100% literacy, let's say, or their literacy level isn't that deep. Those folks and those countries, those societies will also struggle with this because the basic ability to try and pull together words is going to be compromised. So there is an element where you've already giving advantage to people who probably have achieved a certain level of education already. So there's some things to think about here in terms of the interface for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Which leads me nicely onto the next one, which is around a product which has emerged in the market called People GPT. Seems to be a LinkedIn sourcing product. I'm not sure it actually works. And I'm not sure it does anything that's different to any other sourcing tool other than it's got a conversational interface based on OpenAI. There's lots and lots of products like this are emerging right now. And I'm looking at a lot of them going, I mean, that's clever, what you've done there, but it's not any, in fact, if anything, sometimes they're inferior to established ways of doing things. So I had a discussion on a WhatsApp group with somebody recently about a product that, they effectively embedded ChatGPT into an applicant tracking system and were typing out queries into ChatGPT in order to retrieve information from the ATS to build reports and things like that. And to me, it just looked like it was faster to just do it in the ATS. As they said, point and click, and you got the information faster than typing out your command, as far as I'm concerned. There's a reason why we've got buttons.
I had a very interesting conversation again, also with a UX designer, and she was talking about how important buttons were, because it actually prompts an action that you want to press, rather than an empty box, which causes you to have to think about the prompt. So even though there is some magical experiences that you can get from prompting these services, I think we're starting to understand them an element of depth here. So our maturation of it is improving. And we're starting to see some kind of areas where it may not be optimal. But yeah, going back to People GPT, that caused like a wave of interest because of the proposition, which was it would going to be a people aggregator, essentially, so aggregating online profiles, but through human language commands. So you don't need to learn Boolean, basically. And you could give it natural language commands, and it might pull something back from you. We've had all kinds of interesting reports from other people as to whether it works, does it work, what the level it is, etc., etc. We're going to do a Brainfood Live, particularly on this product, actually, because I want to explore it in depth. Two reasons why. Firstly, let's critique it and let's see whether it is what it says on the tin. And secondly, let's think about what we are going to do if it is what it says it is, and if it is even possible for something like this to emerge. Because if it is the case or the latter, then we need to think about, okay, what are the impacts for a big chunk of what recruiters do, which is sourcing for candidates.
Well, it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible for it to work. There's no reason why it shouldn't work. It's not rocket science. The rocket science bit was done by OpenAI. This is an interface, for a specific use case, and it's some. I just don't think it's better than the existing things we've got. You don't need to learn Boolean today anyway. There's plenty of sourcing tools that you can put in what you're looking for, and it builds your string for you.
It's true.
Anyway,
this is true.
About it.
We'll talk about it. I want to get the guy on. He built it. He launched it at much fanfare. Let's get him on. Let's demo it, and then we'll have some recruiters who want to critique it. I think that's fair. And then we'll see where it goes. Because I think I think what's the situation is it probably doesn't work quite as what people think, but it will eventually. In which case, okay, that's going to be a very, very interesting. Sort of changing. Boy, stop saying it. Sorry, Bash. Right, we'll move on. We'll move on to something else. Okay, last one. Adam.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means. Boy, stop saying
it. I don't know. He's referring
That's not Balash's product, is it?
No. I think Balash is no. I don't think so.
Okay, so last one. I think before let's get the smarter people on is IBM CEO said has announced that they're going to stop. They're going to stop hiring for jobs which they have earmarked for AI being able to do. So I know that everyone I've talked about has got an AI related element to it. I don't have any problem with that. I think it's the right thing to do for any large organization. The guy has not got a duty to save humanity. He's got a duty to increase shareholder value. That's all that person has got to do. And if that means every company should be doing this. They should be doing it anyway. They should be looking at how do we automate, because you're going to get better experiences for employees, for customers, for suppliers, for everybody when repetitive tasks are cut out. We have to adapt, and it caused some people going, "Oh, this is a way of getting people back to the office, because you're going to get you're going to get replaced if you don't come back to the office." And I think that sounds to me a bit like a conspiracy theory. I think it's just the company needs to make more money, and this is a way of doing it.
I think one thing we learned from this, by the way, folks, if you don't know this story, it was a really interesting story, simply because it might have been the first prominent example of a CEO pausing planned recruitment for several thousand jobs based on a projection that they made that actually these jobs are highly or sort of AI-able. And we're going to hang on. We're just going to replace it with AI. So 7,000 or so. Interestingly enough, HR was actually mentioned among some of those roles. So we need to also put the same audit to the stuff that we do as recruiters, because guess what? The CFO is going to do that. If we are spending huge amounts of time as individual professionals working on stuff that is AI-able, then you can guarantee at some point some CEO or some CFO is going to say, actually, we're gonna implement technology here, and that workload, the skills you develop for doing that, are going to start receding away, and off you go. So we need to basically lean into areas that are resilient to AI. I think that's true for any white collar professional, and that's the reason why I put that particular post into the newsletter. Definitely worth you checking out, by the way. So a really good and easy read.
So Baz said it's the one CEO that's actually thinking ahead. I would expect that nearly every CEO is thinking the same. They're just not going so public about it. So it was quite a brave move by that person. And by the way, we've had quite a lot of people saying about like a bit of a backlash to my comments about you don't need to understand Boolean. There's tools that do it for you.
Well, yeah, you are on a recruiting show, mate. So
I massively agree. You need to learn your own Boolean. You can do so much more than getting a tool to do it for you. So I really, really do agree. I'm not suggesting that people shouldn't learn how to do it themselves. All I'm saying is there are tools out there that do a lot of the basic stuff for you.
Yeah, that's a decent backtrack, wasn't it, folks? Okay, great. Let's get on with this. We're talking about skills-based hiring. You know nothing about it, Adam. I know nothing about it. Let's bring on some people who do. We'll talk about it. Let's see who we've got. Who have we got here? We've got Andrea Marston. I hope Andrea's here. Yes, she is. Brilliant. Let's bring her on. Oh, we were going to do this in ranks. I think we were, weren't we? Because otherwise there's too many people on screen.
What do you mean rank? Sergeant, general, field marshal?
No. We're going to bring on Chantelle and Andrea first, and then we'll bring on Luke and Rich. Because otherwise there's too many people on screen. There's going to be 5 people not speaking, so we don't want that. There's Chantelle and there's Andrea. Wonderful to see you two. Let's do some introductions for the folks who don't know you. Chantelle, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you say? What it is you do?
Yes. First of all, I have a bit of a cold, so hopefully I won't be too disruptive. My name is Chantelle Jones. I've worked in recruitment and TA for 13 years. Currently work for Nash, where I help a portfolio of clients with their TA programs. So I get all the fun of designing things, and then I have a wonderful team of talent managers who go and implement and help startups and scale-ups grow.
Fantastic stuff. Exciting things happening at Nash for sure. Andrea, wonderful to see you. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm a TA leader at VMWare. VMWare software technology company. We're about 35,000 people globally, and last year we hired about 10,000 people. So I'll give you an idea of what we've been doing with skills-based hiring at scale. And yeah, that's me. Oh, and I've been in the industry about 20 odd years.
20 odd years. Amazing stuff.
And crucially, Andrea forgot to mention that she is also Calvin Harris's flatmate.
So I usually have this blurred, and I realized I look like I'm sitting in some kind of recording studio. This is all my partner's kit. I don't actually know how to use any of it, but now I feel like I probably should start learning. Otherwise, I'm going to be disappointing everyone if I don't turn around and get on the desk.
I was going to say
the Highland cow on the wall suggests to me that Calvin Harris is your partner.
That is my one contribution to this room.
Folks, let's talk about skills-based hiring. Can we define it? Because as a layperson's understanding may actually be accurate here, in the sense that it is like, let's forget about the CV. Let's test for the skills that are appropriate for the job, and that's skills-based hiring. Is that fair? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I'd say so. Layered with still looking for behaviours and traits. I think that's still important, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think we're on the journey. I don't think we're all no one's there yet, but it's about what can we do that's actually going to move this, because we've been talking about skills-based hiring now for how many years as an industry?
Well, so killing CVs has been going around for 30 years, hasn't it? So that entire thing of like getting rid of CVs, I think, is ultimately skills-based hiring, because we all recognize that it's an inadequate signal to whether that person is going to be a good performer or not. But it's been so resilient in our industry, we've not been able to get rid of it. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that skills, because skills-based hiring, if you lay it on sort of at the very superficial level, everyone's going to say, yeah, great idea, but no one does it. So, and we're all back to the CVs and looking at biographies and experience. Why do you think that is the case? Adam, feel free to make your comments here as well. So open question to everyone here.
I'll answer one aspect of it. I mean, it is very, very, you need extremely compelling reasons why an entire movement of people, because that's what we are in recruitment, are going to make a big shift away from something that isn't really a big problem. Some people will probably disagree with that and say CVs are a big problem, but I mean, they kind of do what they say on the tin. And it reminds me of a conversation I had with somebody earlier today about email and why email is not going away, despite us having said for 30 years it's going, or maybe not 30 years, for 15 years that it's going to get replaced. It's just so embedded in the way we do things. And the alternatives to a CV are quite technical and quite technology based. And let's face it, 90% of people recruiting are not doing it in organizations where they have access to much more than Microsoft Office, LinkedIn, and they don't really have recruitment systems. So I think that's some of the reasons.
I'd love to build on that, just because the whole portfolio I work with don't have TA functions, don't have systems. So I really kind of empathize with what Adam's saying. Also, I totally agree that there probably hasn't been enough discomfort to cause such change. We know that we're creatures of habits. The people that I've worked with who have taken this on, and agree with Andrea, they're at the start of their journey as well, is these are people who have really struggled to hire and hire well, because they're going on gut feel, because they don't have technology to help them assess. So they're going on gut feel, which is then really not producing what they want it to. It's causing delays in their hiring, because they bring more and more people into the process because they need validation that their gut feel is correct. And sometimes it means poor quality of hire as well, which we spoke about at length last week. So I think change happens when there's enough pain points to kind of have that tipping point to make that change. And what I've suggested with businesses is to start small and to test and then go on. But Adam, I completely agree with you. There's sometimes you don't have the tech stack to help. And that's where I think we can help train our hiring managers to help assess for skills and behaviors and traits. And as mentioned in the comments, not all skills are hard skills, some are soft skills. So giving the hiring managers a toolkit to be able to do some of that themselves in interview, I think it's a long way to go for companies who want to move this way, but don't have a sophisticated tech stack to help them.
So I think our experience was a little bit different, because our TA wasn't broken. It was, it was running along actually pretty well, but there were some things that we were trying to do. One of them was we were trying to transform into a SaaS company. So there was an impetus for change from the business. And then also we were trying to improve our DEI. We were trying to improve how long it took to hire. And those were the things that meant that we could actually bring in change. And it was about a mindset change, far more than any kind of tools change. So quite honestly, there wasn't a tool difference when we brought in Go hiring or skills-based hiring. It was purely around a mindset shift. And that's a massive ask, especially in a company of our size, to actually get that happening. But it had to get a lot of people on board. And, to the same point, we started with a pilot. We had to prove that it worked before we could actually roll it out.
Yeah, really interesting. All three of you have made a really important points here. So just a quick summary of all of this. Adam, I thought your observations were really spot on. The CV is the best lo-fi way of doing it. So if you've got absolutely nothing, like you are recruiting your first person ever, you're going to want to see a CV. It makes no sense to create a skills-based assessment sort of process, because you may not even have an Excel sheet at that point. So very, very low-fi hiring. CV remains a decent technology to transport a bit of information about. And Chantelle, I think you mentioned, I think some supporting comments in the chat stream there as well. Like most recruitment are of that type, the smaller SMB level, pre-ATS level, may not have a TA team, may not have a HR department. It's still the office manager type person who handles everything. They're not going to have that sophistication to do anything other than, we need to just process CVs through an email inbox. So absolutely correct. And yeah, the pain points, Andrea, going to your points, those pain points, I guess, maybe corporate driven, the DE&I side, where especially for a highly visible company, a US company, I believe VMWare are, but they probably need to publish D&I stats and stuff like this. So obviously big impetus to move things forward that way. And we know there's a candidate shortage as well. So can skills-based hiring help alleviate the candidate shortage? Because if we're reliant on CVs, basically we're reliant on prior experience, basically cuts down our potential talent pool, because the people we need to hire these jobs may not be priorly experienced. And bear in mind, over the last 3 years, we've also seen a massive shift in terms of what types of people want to do what types of job. So for instance, more classically speaking, we know a lot of people in food retail now want to move away from food retail and work online and do something else. Flexible working, they want that. They can earn money doing other stuff, digital call center stuff, whatever it is. Same with baggage handlers at Heathrow Airport and stuff of that type. Prior experience, you're hiring prior experience there. Guess what? The people with experience do not want to do the job no more. So the CV suddenly becomes a big sort of an over filter for the pipeline that you need. Okay, cool. I think we've got a reasonable grasp of what skills-based hiring is. How do we go about to generate the skills? I guess we need to define the job, don't we? I mean, because there's not just one skill. There's like every single job must have a cluster of skills that we need to recruit for. And I guess the complexity starts coming into play when we analyze that and think, we need to actually go through all of our jobs and, create these skills libraries against them. Is that the process you have to go through? I mean, maybe bring Andrea on in this because is that the steps that you have to take?
No, it's not what we did.
Okay, great.
And actually that's maybe where I think I've got lost in it in the past is, when you try and create some kind of skills taxonomy, what I think is strong communication skills is going to be different to what Adam thinks is strong communication skills, for example. We're going to have there's going to be a nuance there. So as soon as you start going into, just a box of skills, it's open to differences. So the way we looked at it was about guided by outcomes hiring, and so that's go hiring in our world, okay? And it's about doing, not having. And the example we always use is if we need to cross the river, okay, do we hire a bridge builder? And that's what you classically would do with an old-fashioned job description. So you go and look for all the civil engineering qualifications, X number of experience building a bridge, etc., etc. Except all we've asked for is to cross the river. There's numerous ways you could cross the river. So actually, we just want to hire someone that will cross the river, and how they do it, they'll show us the best way. It may be swimming, it may be putting some stones in the water and stepping across, it might be canoeing. I mean, it's a daft analogy, apart from it makes sense that actually we don't care how you do it. So then if we translate that into a job description, it's actually about talking about, well, what are you going to be doing in the role? So we have 4 parts to our job descriptions now, and you can see these on our website. Okay, this is not hidden. Starts with the elevator pitch, because it's about what's the role about. Then it's about what does success look like in the role? What are you expected to do? What will success look like in 18 months' time? Then it's what type of work will you be doing? Not a whole shopping list of things that we know puts off women from applying. And then a bit about the leader and the team, so it becomes more human. So people are selecting in. They're saying, yeah, actually, I want to apply for that role at something I can do, rather than saying, these are the skills you need. So it's a subtle difference, but we've been doing this now for almost 2 years. So we've got results that show it makes a difference in a positive way.
Right. So that's really interesting. So you can my focus, my initial idea was that you have to break every job down, have loads of skills in and all that. And what you're saying is, Andrea, actually, no, what you're looking at is outcomes of the job, like the purpose of the job, figure out what it is this job is there to do, and then care a little bit less about, your presumptions as to what skills are required. Because again, using your bridge builder analogy, if you're fixated on the idea is a bridge building is the only way to get across the river, then you are neglecting like loads of people that have other techniques. Some people might fly across the bridge. Who knows? You got all kinds of different ways in which you could do it. And you're saying, you know what, pull back from that and examine the outcomes of the job.
Yeah, we know that everyone over engineers it, don't we? When they're saying, oh yeah, you need to have a master's from wherever or an MBA, and you're thinking, why? It's a tech support engineer. We've all been there. So the more that we can actually bring it down to what do you actually need to do the job, the better. Yeah,
very interesting. Chantelle, have you got any commentary to make on that? Is that the approach you make, or was it more the case, let's do the skills? I mean, I've got a kind of, I don't think it's an either or type of question in this one.
Funnily enough, I had the luxury of learning from the likes of Andrea in my old job, and she was at the start of it, and I had it at an event. So it's a very similar approach we took due to Andrea and her team. Although the analogy is brilliant, I wouldn't have articulated it that way. The only thing that I would say is to add on is the piece that we've been really trying to focus on is that beginning piece of identifying with businesses, identifying what skills they need now and what they need for the future, looking at internal mobility. Can we reskill? Can we train and bring that in, and then go to hiring? So that's kind of the part of the journey that we're currently at. I've been hired, both of my last roles have been hired at a very similar approach in terms of haven't done it in the past, but actually they both gave me tasks and said, how would you do this? How would I cross the river? So both of my roles have also been that way. So nothing really to add, just that first part of TA and people in terms of trying to get that conversation earlier so that actually we can start pipelining people a lot sooner, and also not pipeline for roles that will then be filled internally and waste all of that time. So just an interesting point to add, but I think Andrea's summary of it was brilliant.
Can I ask about I think actually, Chantelle, you sort of touched on it a little bit there around if somebody, you've got to cross the river, you ask people, how would you cross the river? Do they have to have experience in having crossed the river before, or do they have to be able to show that they know they can cross the river? So I'm thinking about there's a lot of evidence that what somebody's done in the past does not necessarily determine their going to be successful in the future. So how does that link into this?
It's a big question. I would, it's probably quite a broad answer, but I think that'd probably be a case by case basis on the business. Every time that I've worked with this, it has been that we need evidence of output and achievements that we can see are transferable, as opposed to a like for like.
Yeah. Okay.
Doesn't this change? This changes sourcing, doesn't it? I think one of the things about skills-based hiring that is just struck me as an idea is that when we're sourcing, as in the traditional active sourcing, we typically are looking at a prospect CV as a template that we go for, a bunch of skills in there, your prior experience. It is all prior experience. So when we're doing Boolean sourcing, we are looking for historical signals that this person can perform that job in the past. But particularly technical sourcing, let's say for software engineers and stuff, the CV actually critical there. So would it be fair to say that a shift to a skills-based hiring approach is generally more suitable for a talent attraction type of mechanism of getting candidates? So in other words, more advert-driven, recruitment marketing, bigger numbers at the top of the funnel, and then it's a filtration process to get to the candidates you want, rather than the more targeted, search and snipe away at. Would that be fair to say?
I think it's a great question, and I can answer that because we've probably got about 50% of our recs are application driven, and 50% are sourcing driven, as a rough idea. You know, we're a tech company and we do a lot of R&D, software engineering hiring, as well as go-to-market, etc. And it works across the board, you know, and it's not just about having the job description. It is, you know, you need to have the right process through there as well, the right interviews, the right kind of the way that you're assessing candidates. That still has to be based on that. But it's about whether the company is ready to hire for potential rather than purely to be hiring, okay, you've already worked at our competitor, therefore you can come in and do the job. You know, use the bridge analogy. If you've managed to cross a railway line, does that mean that we're ready to take a punt on you being able to cross the river? And, you know, this does come down to, well, what other skills do you have? You know, we don't want to hire clones. No one wants to do that. We want to hire people that are going to complement the team, especially if you're going through some kind of transformation. We don't want to just bring in more people from our competitors, because how's that diversifying our cognitive ability?
Yeah, very good point, Andrea. I think the transformation side probably, we should have made a bigger point of that. I should have made a bigger point of it when you first mentioned it. That in itself might be an excellent trigger for doing something like skills-based hiring, because almost certainly they didn't do skills-based hiring in the first place, and they've got to a position where you know, they've recruited the same type of person in, and the entire purpose of skills-based hiring is recruit someone different, open the aperture. But it is interesting to figure out. So there's probably a managerial prioritization issue here as well. Like the hiring for potential seems to be applied. It seems to align, if you like, with skills-based hiring. But sometimes there's a manager or a situation where there's a need this experience now type of stuff, which we can absolutely recognize is true. And maybe in that context, skills-based hiring is kind of a like to have, but it's not something that you could really wedge yourself and throw out the experience type hiring, because you might need that domain knowledge right there and then. So perhaps we also need to factor in what is the managerial context that this person is going to go into. Is there training support? What is the ramp up time? How long would it take to get there, etc. Go ahead, Andrea.
Yeah, I can't remember where I read this research, but there was something about, you know, that how long it actually takes to acquire that experience is really limited. You know, someone is generally ramped up between 3 and 6 months with whatever experience is needed. It's all about, you know, it's about the attitude. It is about having a base level of skills, and then they can grow those other things. So if we had been doing that as recruiters all this time, we wouldn't then have the talent shortages that we've had. We wouldn't be having the kind of conversations we're still having with our hiring managers if we'd been able to get them on board with the idea of hire someone that can do 70% of the job today, because that's a better hire than someone that can do 100% of the job on day one.
Yeah.
One other aspect to this, I think, has got to be around, somebody in the chat talked about the concept of build, buy, borrow. So if you've got something that needs done very fast, and you've got to bring somebody in for 3 months and their job is to get that task done, get over that river, then you probably don't take a 70% of the job. You know, so you need somebody who's, you're effectively paying for a task to get done. Whereas if you're building your company and you're hiring employees and you're building your culture and you're hiring for the future and doing all that sort of thing, then that's a different type of thing. So do we apply?
Really help, right? So if you understand what skill you need immediately, but you understand how long you need that skill for, you can then decide whether to grow it yourself, buy it in, bring in a contract, loan it in. So I think that's where this becomes really powerful, because it should be able to help you make a decision in your workforce planning. If it's that you need that skill set today and you need somebody, a master, like at that particular craft and at that skill set, and you can recognize that you need that for a 3 to 6 month period, you may be best off bringing in a contractor who can do that. We see fractional workers on the rise as well, so this will become more accessible. And whilst they do that, you could actually have them play a mentorship role to people in your business to then transfer some of that skill set into your world of work. This is where I get nerdy, because like that whole cycle is a big ecosystem, and that whole beginning piece of identifying what skills you need trickles down and gets you some great results and very sustainably, as opposed to keep going up and down.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Folks, let's thank our two wonderful guests here. We need to bring on Rich and Luke in a minute. But this has been a really great grounding for a lot of the things that we were talking about. Skills-based hiring, I think, certainly starting to crystallize in my own mind where it is most appropriate. And the truth is, a lot of us have already done it, especially for early entry hiring, right? That's, someone who has zero experience, graduate level, that is skills-based hiring, because the person doesn't have the experience. What we're trying to do here is apply it and extend it beyond just that graduate intake space into the more experienced level hires. And can you career transition people, and has obvious implications also for internal mobility as well. Because if you've proven you can do it externally, then suddenly the idea of one person transitioning from one department to another, I think something changes culturally if you've already sort of had experience with recruiting sort of successful people from different industry departments. Anyway, we've got to move on real quick. Andrea, Chantelle, wonderful to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your contribution so far.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, everyone. See you.
Bye.
Cool cats they are, aren't they? Let's bring on Rich and Luke without further ado. Bass is there as well. I'm going to try and bring Bass on also. I hope that's not too blokey on screen, folks. We kind of got the order a bit wrong there, but I'm sure we'll get away with it. Let's go with Luke, and let's see if we can bring Bass on as well. Bass, if the noise level is too much in the background, man, I'm going to have to mute you, okay? So he's at a conference at the moment. Okay, folks, if you want to ask any questions to our panelists and what have you, and Chantelle and Andrea are still with us on the chat, do ask a question using the Ask a Question feature at the bottom of the screen. Okay, we have Big Rich there. Big Rich Bradley, as if there's a small Rich.
Yeah, well, you never
Rich.
know. You never know.
Indeed.
There might be a small one out there somewhere.
Indeed. Well, Rich, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do, sir?
I'm Richard Bradley, and I do as little as I possibly can. I look after our solutions at Kelly Services, been in the industry for what feels like a lifetime.
Fantastic stuff.
And is the smartest dressed human we've had on Recruiting Brainfood for years.
I know. I actually had to go and see an organisation who would never even think about skills-based hiring because it was in the legal profession. So I had to don a tie and a shirt, and I didn't even know if they'd still fit, but they do. So,
mate,
1-0 to me.
I didn't want to say it looked as if you were up in court or something, mate.
That's next Thursday. Next Thursday. Yeah.
That's fine. Okay, great. Luke, great to see you as well. Luke, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah, likewise. Great to see everyone. So I'm Luke Davis. I'm the co-founder of a diversity platform, diversifying.io, and I'm the COO of a D&I services group called the Diversifying Group. And I've just had my 23-year recruiting anniversary this month. So
amazing.
You beat me by about a month, I think.
And Luke looks significantly better than everyone here. So he's actually, the recruitment crew has been very kind to him. Bass, wonderful to see you as well. I know you're at a conference today, so thanks for just popping out and joining us late notice. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
I'm Bas van der Hatot, and I help organizations basically do smarter hiring and look at skills rather than experiences.
Yep, fantastic stuff. So, folks, you've all heard sort of Andrea and Chantelle give some examples that they've applied and they've used to think about where skills-based hiring belongs. We've also discussed briefly like why there's resistance against it, and actually came up with some positions where we thought actually it's reasonable to resist it, particularly if you're a small company, you don't have systems, you're lo-fi or whatever. What are the reasons, though, that are less reasonable why companies resist skills-based hiring and are still wedded to the idea of hiring for, prior experience and so forth? Let's go to you first with this one, Rich.
Well, I fundamentally think I don't necessarily agree with the complete definition. For me, okay. The whole point about skills-based hiring is to move away from formal qualifications. And that's how I see it. It's not about the eradication of a CV. A CV is still an important document to a degree. Why is there still a lot of people resisting it? Because it's easy. It's easy to say, we need somebody with a degree. And if you take the reason why we actually saw the need for qualifications drop before the big recession in 2008. And then in 2008, there's loads of people on the market. What happens? We need to find a way of actually getting a huge funnel of people into a smaller funnel of people. So guess what? We started to do this whole thing around degree inflation. So all of a sudden, the importance of a degree was escalated as a reason of being able to cut through people. People like to hire people in their own same model. So, you know, if you're in financial services or the legal services, they want people that have come from the same university, the similar background. The whole point about skills-based hiring for diversity, etc., is to try and break the mold of being somebody that's come from a red brick university or somebody that's come from a particular educational background, and actually say, what is it, the skills that you have? And then I think that the reason why it's suddenly become super popular and it's now suddenly become another buzzword in the recruitment industry and across industry is because, you know, degrees aren't valuable anymore. Sorry, that's my personal view. You do a 4-year degree in most countries today. By the time you get to the end of that 4-year degree, most of what you've learned is absolutely not valid. It's out of date. You know, a lot of reason people used to utilize degrees was because they felt that it was a great way of saying that people had an ability to level of soft skills, etc. Fact is, most students that come out of university don't know how to talk to each other. So it's the reasons for why we had degrees have changed, and therefore it's not necessarily an effective way of discerning if somebody is in a better group than another group. And that's why it's changed so much. But people like it because it's easy and it makes them feel comfortable.
Really good point, Rich. It's basically used to moderate high applicant flow, right?
Yeah.
So you can't handle 1,000 people. Let's throw in some you need a 2-1 or you need a first now instead of a 2-1, or actually you need a master's degree because you know what, I need to convert this 1,000 applications to 100. And therefore it's interesting to know, because obviously we might be heading towards more turbulent economic times. I think we all feel a little bit of that pressure. Are we with the resistance against skill-based hiring increase again in this type of context? Be interesting to know. So in other words, candidate-rich environment, we don't like skills-based hiring. Candidate-poor environment, we can't get the candidates, and suddenly we like skills-based hiring. Okay, let's go to you, Luke. What's your thoughts on this? I know you've been doing some consultancy work around this, so can you just maybe just start there? Give us some context as to what sort of consultancy work, why have they brought you in? What have you been doing?
Yeah, cool. So I guess the crux of it is probably based around, given what I do, the diversity element. And you know, for me, I'd heard about skills-based hiring for ages. And if someone had said to me 5 years ago, do you do it? Is that how you practice recruiting? I'd say, yeah, of course I do. We check the skills of someone during a process, et cetera, et cetera. The truth was, in reality, most hiring was still being done by job titles, companies, experiences, and that type of stuff. And when I came into this role, I was thinking really deeply about, well, if you really genuinely want to diversify your talent pipelines, you're dealing with a fixed talent pool when you're only going off the other companies that they've worked at, the job titles they've got. You're never going to solve that problem, like never. So actually, if you're not adopting some form of skills-based hiring, then you're going to fail, period, on the topic. I guess where I come into it is probably quite lo-fi. For me, it's really around that when you take most job descriptions with the requirements at the moment, and I think this is down to kind of recruiter time a lot. I think people are looking, like, you know, Richard was saying, for the degree and those things that you can knock out, 6 to 8 years of experience, must have done this, must be these industries. And actually, if you just translate that a bit, not massively, but just a bit, and go, actually, what are we really looking for here? And actually kind of what are the skills that would make someone successful and show they can do the job? I think you can get some quite powerful outcomes. And I think there's an example I talk to quite a lot where, you know, sales development reps, actually what you're looking for, you know, empathy, listening, you know, ability to respond skillfully, etc. And there's been, you know, some organizations I know that have hired social workers into roles like that. And actually some of the benefits they've seen is social workers are much better at using a system than the average salesperson. So you get up-to-date sales data and things like that. So the world I'm existing in really is just trying to help recruiters and organizations just move over a little bit, not massively, just move over a little bit. Because when you do, I think the outcomes can be quite powerful.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Bas, what's your take on? In fact, no. Before we go to Bas, let's do one thing which I nearly forgot to do, folks. We need to come off air. Obviously, Brainfood Live on Air has a limit in terms of how long we can actually stay broadcasting, and we're going to have to close off this conversation in due course. However, we don't want to ever be the choke point for this. If you are interested in this topic, skills-based hiring, and you've got some value from the conversation so far, please do make sure sure that you continue the conversation offline with everyone else who's in this show. Take a moment and share your LinkedIn URL into the chat stream, or if you're watching this on a LinkedIn thread, and I know hundreds of you are, because I can see the different streams going off from different channels, go and add your LinkedIn URL into a comment thread there, and then just connect with everyone who you see doing likewise. Worst case scenario, you've spent an hour and you've just walked away with 50 quality contacts for your LinkedIn network, which, by the way, folks, we should always be working on anyway. So go ahead and connect with all those people and make sure you carry on this conversation. So Bas, sorry to interrupt you there, but I asked you the question, okay, where do you stand on skills-based hiring? What have you heard so far, and what would you like to add?
Well, there's one thing I like to add, but first I would like to very much disagree with Rich on 2 points which he just said. The first is that the degree doesn't matter, and that depends on the job. Because, and I'm going to take the example you just took because you're wearing a tie, legal. So first of all, a legal degree matters because you need it to be a member of the bar. And in that case, it matters. Second of all, if you're talking about people who don't do skills-based hiring, actually we've got a few law firms who are on the top of the front here in the Netherlands doing skills-based hiring, not as much on the degree because they still want a degree from all their graduates because you need it to pass the bar. You know, that's just law. But they are now looking into the skills that you need to see what type of law would fit you best. So are you in a merger or acquisitions law? Are you in fiscal law, etc., etc.? And they're now trying to figure out, do you fit our company based on your skills? You know, do you have the type of skills that our type of law firm fits best? And we have, for example, we have one company which is known for being very female friendly, and they have definitely different skill sets than, for example, the British firms who also practice in Amsterdam, who are like, if you're not willing to work 80 hours a week, you're never going to make it here. So they have these different types of measurement, but those are also skills. So I would disagree with you that, first of all, law firms aren't measuring for skills because they had such high dropout rates from graduates that they have been moving to skills-based hiring, just not the technical skills, because those are required by law that you have a law degree. And second of all, that not all degrees matter. I mean, when I was in hospital, I was very happy that my nurse actually had a nursing degree, to be honest, and knew what the hell she was doing when she was where she was stabbing me with a syringe.
So I'll come back very quickly, and I'm not being flippant. I agree. Look, you know, there are certain qualifications that are needed for certain things. I disagree around the nurse, by the way, and COVID proved that a number of nurses were hired that didn't have formal qualifications that were capable of doing jobs as nurses. So it's a moot point. But you're right. There are certain jobs that do require a level of experience. I wouldn't want to have somebody operating on me as a surgeon that had kind of got the right skills. They could use a scalpel. You know, they'd got a level of concentration, etc. So, you know, it's a moot point. But I think the problem is there are lots of jobs out there that don't require a qualification, and you're absolutely right. But I think the problem is we do a one size fits all, and like I just did.
We agree 100% on that point. Yeah. I think about 70 to 80% of all jobs do not need a formal qualification, and actually you see that because about 80% of the people doing a job did not get a college degree for that specific job, but they moved during. I mean, go into every recruiter and one or two people actually had an HR degree. To your point, Hong, what I see with actual skills-based hiring, I've seen a couple of really cool examples recently where they started mainly in graduate recruiting, hiring on talent, looking at the potential skills, so to say. So what they call it's called cognitive traits, you know. And I've seen it in construction where they were like, what type of construction, okay, you want to work in construction, what type of construction work do you fit best? I've seen it in IT development, you know, are you a programmer? Are you more of a low-code developer? Are you more of a project lead? And they map the skills of the people excelling in that certain job, and they map them to people applying to this job. And I've also seen it, just in management traineeships where they are now being able to see, okay, you're this type of manager. For example, you're really good at reorganizing, or you're really good at building a team, and they've setting people up for success by giving them the traineeship gigs within the company to fit their skills, rather than give them a random assignment, which interestingly enough, Unilever said that they reached 50-50 male-female management variety because of this skills-based methodology.
Okay, so very, very good, Bas. Great overview. Again, thanks everyone for the contributions there. It seems that certainly the motivation to go to skills-based hiring is there. However, it requires more complexity to build a system around skills-based hiring than it does do through CV related hiring, and that's just, I think you condemned it a little bit, Rich, as laziness. But I think which you can definitely level that accusation, but oftentimes it's a capacity issue, right? So if there isn't a capacity in the business to have a more complex system, then you will default to something that is simple if flawed. It's almost like, yeah, we know it's not ideal, but you know what? This is going to cost me less man hours or less person hours. I don't have a cooperative hiring manager unit, let's say, and you got to go with what you got to go with. Okay. What about sort of any advice we would give to TA people who are thinking about, okay, we want to try and use skills-based hiring to try and alleviate candidate shortage, but I need to speak to a skeptical hiring manager audience to do that. Any thoughts on advice you want to give to that person? Let's go around on this. Luke, why don't we start with you?
I'd say probably it's like that good old classic wildcard candidate one, where you get permission from the hiring manager to say, like, look, I know you're not too sure about this, but can I have one of the interview slots where I maybe pop in someone that I'm convinced has got the skills for this job, and give them that direct comparison? Because I genuinely believe you get better hires from the approach. It's not lowering the bar. And I think there's that perception from hiring managers that not having that experience is some way choosing something lesser. So that'd be the key thing I would advise, is like, take them on a step-by-step journey. If you try and take them too far too quickly, they're just going to bin you, reject you, go around you, as I've seen many times.
Yeah, and they're going to resist. So basically, I love this little tactic. It's basically saying upfront, before you even have the candidates, you say to the hiring manager, look, we're going to diversify the slate. What you're going to get is 30% of the people are not going to be, your classic biography, but we think, based on our assessment, they're going to fit the bill. 70% of the slate are going to be bang on what you have spec'd out, but you're going to interview a lot of them, and then you're going to make the judgment, and then we're going to see sort of which one of those people go through. I really like that technique, and you've got to do it before you have the candidate, by the way, folks, because you can't just like, oh, by the way, I got this amazing dude. You got to have a really solid relationship to get away with that one. Okay, Rich, how about you? Bit of advice for a TA person that is, trying to move down this route to solve the candidate shortage problem. How does he or she interact with the hiring managers that might be skeptical?
I don't think I could add a lot more than Luke, because I think the truth is, if a hiring manager isn't open to it, they're not going to agree to it. So some people have got very close minds. You've only got to look at the talk bar on the side of here to see how many differences of opinions you've got just in our little audience. So to try and get anybody, I think the reality is, would you be open to seeing somebody that may not fit your mold? If I think they've got the right skills and they could add some value, is the only way that you can go about it. For me, if you're going to do a skills-based hiring, it's got to be an organizational thing, or certainly a departmental thing, where you break it down into smaller chunks. But yeah, I think it's very difficult to do, and I probably agree with Luke. You've got to take that approach, would be my view.
Fair play. How about you, Bask? One bit of advice, if you could be brief with it. What would you say to a TA person that's wants to do it, but is a bit lacking in confidence about whether the hiring managers are up for it?
Well, sorry, I have to disagree with Rich again here. Sorry, mate. But what I've actually seen is, if you actually do it and you give them the reports, if you if you do sort of a skills-based assessment, something which fits the skills from the job, and usually a job description or a job ad has some skills in it. You measure them, you give them a report with the skills. They won't ignore it. And they won't even ask, how did you measure them? because they are assuming you know what the hell you're doing. Then now you need to be knowing what the hell you're doing. Let's put that up front. But I've seen it. I've actually seen it at a university, at professors who were as skeptical as it was. But as soon as we gave them the reports, nobody asks questions, and everybody was like, okay, so apparently these people, according to your test, have the skills. Those tests were validated. Yes, they were scientifically validated. They never asked if they actually, they never asked for the reports. And they dare not, because a hiring manager is also in the risk-averse business. If he hires somebody or she that is on the low end of what you said had the skills and it's a mishire, all of a sudden the blame is on that person. So all you need to do is make sure that your talent assessment, your skills assessment is correct. And what I've actually now seen, and I've worked at the ministry, we've implemented adding skills-based assessment to the CV, because we couldn't get rid of the CV because this was a government organization and basically the ATS didn't even support getting rid of the CV. And now all the hiring managers, because the pilot has stopped and we stopped measuring them, are like, where are our skill reports? Well, when we started this, everybody was like, yeah, we don't want skill reports. We just gave them with the CV for 2 years. And now all of a sudden they're like, yeah, but that was the most important thing. So it just give them the information. Don't take anything away. Give them as extras. And pretty soon it's going to be the most important thing if you measure it right.
Right, that's a really good technique. Basically, overload the candidate, not overload the manager, but basically don't wait for the request. Provide the additional information, and that can be kind of a very good negotiation tool in order to create change. So you created, if you like, a bit of support for yourself to do that. Folks, we're running well over time, so we need to go to the question who's been asked. Let's just deal with this one and we'll finish the show. Sylvia's asked, okay, we'd love to get your thoughts on assessment that measure potential, predict performance based on cognitive skills and psychometrics. Do you use them? Are they the future? How open to HR people to using them? Okay, what do you think about this? So we're talking about a cognitive assessment. I'm going to assess you on your thinking power, I guess. Are we comfortable with this? Do we use it? Where do we think it fits into the world of recruitment? Let's quickly go around. Adam, you go here as well. What's your thoughts? Adam Gordon, you go first.
Truth is, I don't have any thoughts on that.
Yep, mine's blank. He would fail the cognitive test. Let's go to Richard.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea, and we see loads of different people with companies like Sova, who we use all the time, coming up with some really good stuff around creativity, agile thinking, that type of stuff.
Yep, fantastic. Go ahead, Luke.
I'm not comfortable with it yet, but keeping an open mind that maybe I need to be in the future, but I don't trust the science yet.
Yep, fantastic. How about you, Bas? Very quick.
Absolutely. Actually, all the skills-based assessments I'm talking about are cognitive or psychometric assessments. But to compliment Luke, there are awesome ones out there. There are crap ones out there. You need to know what you're selecting. And if you're not comfortable with it, your own knowledge level isn't good enough. So please hire an expert to make sure that what you're selecting on, because I see so many great tools being used for the wrong purposes, and then they're just as bad as a wrong tool.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much, Bas. Thank you very much, Rich. Thank you very much, and Luke. Great to have you on the show. And we're going to have to let everyone go at this point. Okay, white collar boxing, Rich and Bas. I think we need to see that. Let's have it done. By the way, good result for you boys recently, Rich. Well done, mate. I think you're going to do it. So yeah, we'll catch up. By the way, are we catching up? We're sort of back in London or something. I think we are, aren't we? I can't remember.
Yeah, we are.
Whenever you're back, so let me know. Okay, cool, mate. Right.
I've got one thing to add, although I couldn't answer that question at all. I've got one thing to add, and that is the one of the big challenges in here is that a lot of hiring managers are driven by vanity and ego, and they want to be able to tell their friends that they've got a team full of people who are 6 foot and double degrees and, joined from McKinsey. That's the biggest group of people that are going to have TA is going to have problems with in moving towards skills-based assessment.
I actually remember having that conversation where the CEO was very proud to count the number of PhDs in the company. And I was saying, That's great. As a recruiter, that's easy for me because I just need to find PhD people. So I was disaligned with the organization. I was thinking, yeah, just hire these PhD people. But were they really what they needed at the time? It was a source of pride and ego for the CEO. So yeah, there's a lot of disalignment. We have to look in, where the hiring managers align to it and that kind of stuff as well. So we need to think about it all also. Anyway, we're out of time, everyone. So thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the show. We're back next week. What are we talking about? We're talking about how to measure the impact of employer branding. Make sure you sign up to this. We all love EB. We all do creative things with it. We probably some of the things that we love most about recruitment is the wonderful things that we have done with employer branding, because it gives us an opportunity to be creative. Yet at the same time, how do we actually measure the impact of it? Because our failure to be able to do that, I think, does mean that we're not able to always and consistently make the case for the budget that's necessary. So make sure you sign up for that, folks. Final point I need to make, we are doing the What Do Recruiters Want survey again. I don't know whether you saw that, Adam, but we're launching that. That was the Thursday ping out. We've got 357 people completed already. That's a pathetic 1% of the 30,000 people that should be reading the newsletter. So I need everyone to do it, folks. 2 years ago, we did the same survey when we were Peak Recruiter. No one could hire recruiters. We wanted to figure out what recruiters wanted in the world of work so that companies could better design jobs for them. 2 years down the line, the world has obviously changed. Have recruiters changed? That's the question. So I want you all to do the survey. A link is going to be in the chat stream. I'm going to ping it out to all of you as well. And yeah, let's get this done, folks. Okay, that's about it. I'm out of here. You're out of here. Have a good weekend, everybody. See you later.
Cheers.